I'm playing a TTRPG called Numenera. It's not super important you know about it beyond this. It's an over-the-top sci-fi game that has a real emphasis on anything being able to happen. One of my player characters was a low-level Magneto-esque character in that he could control magnetic fields and exert telekinesis over metallic objects. Another player, her character started out as a human, but through the course of the game, had her consciousness transferred into a robotic body. Robot player character's player is just talking about what we can do next. It isn't really a very heated conversation. The Magneto player character's player declares, "I use my power to hold your mouth shut," and was legit expecting the player to just stop participating in the conversation of what to do next. Now, I want to make this part clear. He was actively trying to silence her out of character and get her to stop participating, for really no other reason than he was in a trollish mood. Now, as we all know, most women absolutely love it when the men around them invent new ways to silence and talk over them. That's super fun for them and really makes them want to come back to said game and spend time with those same said men. And if you haven't figured out that this paragraph is sarcasm, then I don't know what to tell you. Needless to say, she stopped being friends with him over that incident. I can't say I blame her. This humble Reddit post really cannot express just how casually mean-spirited, callous, and trollish it was. I can say with pretty good confidence that I don't think anybody likes getting talked over or silenced, especially in a casual, fun environment like a TTRPG game. We're all supposed to be participating here, and trying to silence other players just because you want to be kind of a sexist dick today, well, that's not a really great way to keep those players in your life. Hi everyone, new here, but I've been listening to Crispy's Tavern, thank you by the way, non-stop over the past week while sick, and it dredged up some old memories. So here is my own horror story. Sorry if it's long, brevity is my dumb stat. I, 30, female at the time, 26, am a shy person, and especially back then, I had trouble asserting my own space. But this was a game that only made that far worse. It was a few years ago. On an LGBT-centric D&D server on Discord, I specifically went to find a game. It was a nice community, so I joined a game in progress looking for a 5th player. I played an orc barbarian, raised by dwarves with a big stone gauntlet, fused to her arm. I'd been reading Hellboy, what can I say? The only other player I can remember was an Aarakocra sorcerer, sharing a mind with an evil spirit, who spoke in third person in and out of character, including out of game. Odd, but yeah, it was harmless. I wasn't given any info on the game beforehand beyond bare setting basics. Think, it's like Forgotten Realms, but not. I was simply dumped in the middle of some town encircled by a big hedge maze that I couldn't exit out of, only having been told I went there to the town for some reason. Oh yeah, and I saw a beholder on my way in. Okay. I spent the first hour or so not really participating, as I was left to my own devices while the rest of the party, who had yet to even meet me, went shopping. Eventually, some contrivance finally let us meet up, and we quickly found a job that involved killing some kind of monster out in the fields by town. I'd barely gotten to interact with anyone or do anything at that point, so I hope it's understandable if it sounds like I was already really checked out. We trekked out there and no one responded to any of my attempts to roleplay. They did, however, discuss whether to draw a card from a deck of many things that they had, now or later. I had vaguely heard of this item but had never seen it in action, so I accepted it as a normal thing when they told me that whoever was attuned to it had to draw at least one card every 24 hours, and the only way to unattune to it was to get someone else to attune to it. In hindsight, I realized what a bonkers twist on the item this was, but I'm low-key disappointed they settled on delaying the draw a bit. It would have probably been more fun than what followed. Long story short, 2-ish hours in, we found our target. Some big demon giant thing stomping around in a pitch-black battlefield. The GM had taken a piece of official art of this thing, obscured the top of it with a black gradient, and scrawled in 2 glowing eyes with Roll20's award-winning drawing tools after putting it on the canvas. We decided to attack, and the GM asked us to roll for initiative. No, just kidding. There was no initiative. We sort of just went for it, with everyone just saying what they were doing to this thing, and the GM occasionally chiming in with its actions. As the barbarian, I tried to say I rushed to the front line and attacked to try and draw attention from the others, but I was cut off. I decided to wait a little, try to chime in again, but to no avail. Eventually, everyone had just done their thing except for me, and rather than the GM asking me what I wanted to do, they simply let everyone else act again. Rinse and repeat. At the time, my social anxiety was horrible, so it didn't take more than a couple of rounds before I just gave up and sat there bitterly. Nobody at any point ever asked what my character was doing, and I was never attacked either. It was like I just lost connection in MMO and was simply standing still at the edge of the field or something. I muted myself and decided, in spite, to just wait and see how long it'd take before somebody acknowledged me. Something like 30 minutes passed, and nothing. The fight was still going on. I quietly left the call on the server. The GM never even messaged me afterwards. GMs and players everywhere, I implore you, if someone at your table isn't speaking up, don't just assume they're not trying. Some people need more space than others. While I've gotten much better at advocating for myself, you can imagine that being shy doesn't exactly lend itself to communicating that easily. I've gone on to GM many games since and always make it a priority to involve everyone to the best of my ability, and I consider that an essential duty of the role. TLDR, I joined a new game over Discord. I'm told nothing about the world or party or their cursed deck of many things. The GM barely bothers to introduce my character to the others, and the entire group stonewalls me throughout initiative-less combat. Where to even begin? At the top of this episode, we covered how much it sucks to be silenced, and here we just see how much it sucks to be ignored. I understand that we've seen plenty of stories where people are ignoring the game and don't care about engaging, and that's why they're quiet. But that's clearly not what we're seeing here. We're seeing somebody who wants to engage. She's just not being allowed to engage. The simple power of asking somebody, hey, were you trying to say something, should not be underestimated. Simple phrases like that can really help to bring somebody into the game, especially if they're just trying to be a part of a new group. Acclimating to a new group of people can be very difficult, especially in a roleplay environment where you're playing a character. So, helping people to feel welcome is a major responsibility, not just for the Dungeon Master, but for the entire group. This group is the complete opposite of welcoming. I kind of wonder what their thought process is. Why invite somebody if you're not even going to pay attention to them at all? I suppose now we will never know. Hey folks, I've been thinking for a while on how to construct this, but we'll see how this goes. A few years ago, I joined a D&D Discord community with a rather interesting concept, where people would make a character, get it verified by an admin, and then you look out on the DM notice board, where you sign up and then do your adventure with a bunch of people and gradually level up over time. I had done a few adventures prior, and I had a really good time with them, made some friends, and had a few good sessions. I was still very new to Dungeons & Dragons at the time, and so I wasn't savvy with local groups, etc. This takes place just as my Dragonborn War Cleric hit level 2, and myself and a few other players take up a job to investigate a goblin cave that is harassing a local village. The first thing I noticed about the DM was that he was very short-tempered and didn't have patience with the more new players and tried to hurry the group along with decisions. Eventually, after a rather rushed introduction, we reached the goblin cave, which to our surprise was crudely fortified, so we all huddled up and tried to decide on the best way to go about it. This went on for about 10 minutes before a voice cut in. Right, I'm going to the store and we'll be listening in. If you don't have a plan by the time we get back, I'll end the session and find a group that will. And on his word, the DM muted himself. Needless to say, the tension and awkwardness we felt was really bad. So under pressure, myself and the new guys came up with a crude plan and thought, screw it, here we go. As we mainly expected, it was a trap. Luckily, due to myself having a shield as well as the other fighter and the speed of our monk, we managed to get through it. We eventually came up upon this grand opening in the cave where the goblins had this sort of altar guarded by these weird beasts, and so the combat ensued. We handled it pretty well. However, things turned a bit sour when I was one-on-one with one of these beasts. Those who know War Clerics know we have an ability called War Priest, which lets us use, up to our Wisdom mod, our bonus action as an extra attack. When I did this, he responded, "How the are you doing that?" he shouted. I calmly explained, though this didn't seem to pacify him, and he went as far as to get the admin in the chat to confirm what I was saying. Following this, he asked the staff to stay to keep an eye on me. I shrugged it off, and we got to the end of the dungeon where we began to investigate the altar, to which this angelic figure descended to face us and told us to forgive the wrongdoings of others in order for us to be truly enlightened. What? With everyone confused, I decided to inquire and ask, with my acolyte background and time spent in temples, would I know what this angel represents? His response was as follows: "Buddy, this ain't Critical Role. I don't know what you mean. I'm just trying to ask if with my character's knowledge after spending time in temples and such, would I know what this deity represents?" Look,
You would have zero idea about this, so stop trying and just listen. This ain't Critical Role.
That was it. I just sat quietly and let him finish this huge monologue about morals before the session ended. Usually you stay behind and offer comments for the DM, but I just left. I felt so put down by the encounter that I just left the server. Luckily, I never gave up with Dungeons & Dragons and have found a far better group and far better experiences. Glad I didn't give up, but holy crap, that's a real trial by fire. TLDR, I joined a D&D server and encountered a dungeon master with very little patience and a short fuse that belittles his players before I end up leaving.
Man, rolling a religion check? Isn't that such a Matt Mercer thing to do?
Seriously though, this guy screams of a DM who just doesn't really care much for the game, or more specifically, care much for their players. I know the last freakout is probably going to be the thing on most people's minds, but is anyone else thinking about the fact that this guy left to grab groceries in the middle of a D&D game? That is unbelievable to me. And on top of that, the reason the guy implied he did it was because the party were taking too long to plan? Look, I understand if the party are planning for like an hour or something crazy like that, but 10 minutes? That's nothing. That's time for you to sit back and just watch the party roleplay with each other. That's great. But, my friends, I think that right there is the problem. When the party are role-playing with each other, that takes the DM out of the equation. I think this is a DM who doesn't like that, who wants to sit in the spotlight and give the party convoluted moral lectures. We often see DMs taking the spotlight with DMPCs, but we can also forget that sometimes DMs can just take the spotlight. I can recall a few times where I've done this by complete accident, where I just kind of get into the monologuing, get into the job of being the DM, the arbiter of this incredible fantasy world, that I forget, like, oh crap, I'm playing with players. And it's something that I've worked very hard to improve. However, this guy isn't doing it by accident, he's doing it intentionally. He is right, however, about this not being Critical Role. Critical Role, have a good dungeon master. I will try to keep this brief, as no one wants a long post that could be short. I am a cis male. I have been gaming for decades. I keep hearing horror stories about how women are treated. I have definitely seen horror stories in real time, but the ones where women are treated like a piece of meat, given creepy, awkward, super special in-game treatment, or really aren't among them. This isn't me saying it doesn't happen. I was just wondering why I haven't seen them, and I figure maybe I am the reason. Not to brag on myself, but I'm a fairly social person. Even ran a bar for a while, and I tend to put down any questionable behavior before it gets bad. But I can't take myself out of the equation. A group I can listen in on won't really work, as people who do this crap don't really want an audience. Plus, all the direct message harassments I hear about, I wouldn't see. And I'm just not capable of being quiet ever about anything. So I came up with an experiment. Online gaming as a woman. This is the plan. Get a VTube. When asked, I just claim I'm kinda shy on camera, and this helps me. Get a real-time voice changer. Create burner accounts with a couple of photos, but not many. I have enough female friends to where one will lend me their face, so that's easy. Join a game with red flags in the title, but doesn't say ERP or anything direct. It's not harassment if I literally ask for it. Next step is to make a female character that is not sexy or a non-sexy character. Wait, aren't those the same thing? Again, if I hit on everyone or otherwise invite the attention, it will ruin the experiment. The goal is to seem like an easy target, but not actually invite anything. Then I'll give each game I try some time, as this kind of stuff takes a while to show up sometimes. Why am I posting this? Because I could use your help, mainly in this order. Is there a V2 program people can suggest? I have looked around, but it's hard to figure out what ones will work with Discord, Roll20, and other gaming software. Is there a good real-time voice changer that will adjust my very masculine voice to feminine believably? I am tone deaf and can't sing, but my voice is baritone. How is that relevant? I can work on how I talk and what phrases to use, but my actual voice is my concern. No issue with burners, they're my jam. I used to surf the deep web out of morbid curiosity, honestly not worth the damage to your psyche. Do not recommend. 4. Any suggestions on what good red flags to look for? Dark and gritty are the ones I really have on the radar at the moment. 5. Any ideas for character traits? Not so much the exact characters, as I'm not going for any one system. I'm currently thinking slightly oblivious big sister personality, but willing to do whatever is best for the experiment. This is game dependent, but feel free to give me suggestions. The goal of this is try to understand how it feels to be a woman in gaming. From the outside looking in, I see no real issues, but people claim that that's not a fair perspective, so I want to get one. To the person who will claim this is me just trying to get some experiment, you're not completely wrong. Social experiments are super fun to me. If you are thinking I am catfishing, again, not completely wrong, but doing it to a predator doesn't really bother me. Plus, they will have no real information, so I won't be getting anything but a better understanding of women in gaming. Also, I am not broke. Buying good programs that are single user price, under $100 each, is fine. Free is great and all, but I would rather be believable. Hey guys, so this is a bit wild. I recruit on Discord whenever the need for a new member opens up. After giving priority to my current players to find a replacement, they wanted to change up the status quo and get fresh eyes, so away I went. Okay, the very first dude I get seems like okay, until in the middle of a voice conversation, they flat out ask me if there are any females in my group. Then they admit to not actually wanting to play before I can quit stammering. Weird, right? Doesn't want to play, but respond to an invitation to maybe play? Well, it turns out the guy is actually some kind of self-appointed internal affairs women hate crime investigator. He said he wants to quietly observe the women to ensure she isn't bringing a horror story on herself. So, yeah, I basically ended the call and went to ask my party if they really didn't have a friend to bring in. They insisted I give it another shot, so I do. Get a reply very quickly from a new account on the LFG Discord. I'm worried because their avatar is a stock photo of a woman laughing over a salad. We hop in call, and I'm immediately greeted with what sounds like a Vocaloid who picked a fight with a Transformer.
Hello, I'm Tina.
A voice changer. I understand they're new, and nerves might be making them find silly fixes to things. I politely let them know that voice changers are not going to work in my campaign.
Voice changer?
Tina barks at me.
I am a real full-bodied female girl, women of birthing age.
I decide to see this thing through, so my party pities me enough to stop the madness. I ask, okay then, what would you like as a player, Tina? She responds,
I am neither sexy nor unsexy, see?
Her Discord webcam pings on. I sit there gawking at what looks like one of those terrible metaverse VR ladies. At this point, I have a running theory, so I flat out ask, are you the dude from earlier who was asking to sit in and audit how we treat women? Tina goes silent. Then...
Oh, of course not, but I, know who you're talking about. We spoke after I joined here. Question, do you think he hates the other persuasion?
I blurt out, what?
Do you feel he hates women, OP, despite being a bartender? I don't know. When I spoke, I got the vibe I was really being protected. I felt so delicate and safe with him. Is he offering to watch in? You should accept. Your games will never be abusive to femme, or any other woman archetypes again.
My campaign isn't abusive. Tina huffs at that.
Funny, because I hear a lot of horror stories online about that sort of thing. Guess they're all fake and females are all liars. What a waste of $500.
Before I can disconnect myself, Tina leaves, blocked me on all my platforms. Not really sure how to wrap this up. I guess that just happened. Strange what fellas will do online. So, the second post was satire. The first post, at least from what I can tell, was legit. And that just makes it even funnier. Not to say the satire wasn't funny. I had to do 5 takes that damn salad line. I swear to God, it nearly killed me. Now, I do want to acknowledge the possibility that this is all a crazy Inception play, and the first post was also satire. The guy makes a fake post implying women are all making fake posts, only to be put in a fake post about his post about women making fake posts. But considering he's been defending the idea in the comments and trying to add justifications in the post, I don't know if it's satire or not. At this point, what is true? I don't think I need to say this because you guys are fans of Crispy's Tavern, and that makes you guys super smart and super awesome. But if you want to know what a woman's experience is like in a TTRPG, you could just ask them. And if they say that they had a bad experience, they're probably telling the truth. Unfortunately. The best thing you could do is to show empathy and understanding and ensure that games are comfortable for everyone playing at the table. You don't need this crazy VTuber plot to disprove that sexism exists in D&D because, well, you're just gonna make yourself look like a moron. Danger, danger, danger. This is a story from several years ago, and I still think about it often. The short backstory was that my mother was getting married to this guy I'll name George. They were getting married at Universal Studios in Florida, and then the plan was to go on a cruise to the Bahamas afterwards to celebrate, and my birthday would also occur during the cruise, so it was basically her birthday present to me to fly me out since I was living with my dad, and they would take me on this new cruise. While relaxing in the hotel suite after doing some wedding stuff like stuffing thank you cards into gifts, my older brother, I'll name Joey, spoke up and was like, "Hey, to pass the time, how about I run a quick Pathfinder one-shot for you guys?" Myself and George were interested. I've played a ton of D&D, but never really played Pathfinder, and George played D&D in high school in like the 80s. We spent the day reading from the core rulebook and looking up races and online lore. I ended up making a fetchling rogue because I was like, ooh, shadow person rogue, so cool. I was like 13, got me some slack, okay? George made some kind of melee bruiser, I can't really remember the details. Just a solution to most things was I hit it. The one-shot was going decently well until we got into this encounter where we were supposed to escort some carriage through town and were essentially assailed by enemies. I tried to defend myself and do what I could, but George, for some reason, refused to leave the carriage and effectively refused to fight on the front lines. This would have been fine if he had any range attacks, but he didn't, so he just squatted on the carriage going, "I'm ready to attack anyone who gets near." Lo and behold, I end up dying, and he runs off overwhelmed and gets finished off. I react pretty negatively and just yell at George, "What the hell was that?" George just responds, "Don't speak to me in that tone." Since I'm pissed since I just died, and I admit I was a bit of a dick, I responded, "This is the tone a dumbass deserves." And George goes, "Do not speak to your dad like that." And without thinking, I just blurted out, "You're not my dad." And before I could realize what was happening, George smacked me across the face. Oh boy. That escalated quickly. My face hurt, and my ears were ringing. All I saw and comprehended was a look of pure fury on my older brother's face, and then a full-blown fight breaks out. My older brother was trying to beat the ever-living crap out of George. I wasn't fully there, so I was kind of absent-mindedly on autopilot, and went to hold my older brother back. That's when our mom got back with the groceries. She saw the fight, she saw the red welt and beginning bruise on my face and demanded to know what the hell was happening. My older brother told her what happened, and for the rest of the night, all me and my older brother heard from the master bedroom was arguing. The next day, the day we were supposed to go on the cruise ship, my mom woke us up and told us that my older brother was going to be sharing the cabin suite on the ship with me, and that she and George were going to take the single cabins that were meant for me and my brother. We didn't really interact or see George the entire cruise. I ran into him once at the 24-hour pub when I went to get some late-night chicken wings. It was really awkward because he was drinking himself silly at that bar. After the cruise ended, I went back home, and a few months later, I found out that my mom and George had separated. TLDR. Mom marries new guy who did some questionable plays in a Pathfinder one-shot. I, being a 13-year-old, react negatively at his perceived stupidity. George hits me and infuriates my older brother and mom. Mom and George fight and separate shortly afterwards. Now, was the OP in the story being a bit of a cock? Yes. He probably shouldn't have said those things. But at the same time, guys, you shouldn't punch your kids in the face. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of crap for saying that, but don't punch your kids in the face. It's just not a great thing. Don't do that. This whole story is absolutely horrifyingly realistic in the way that things can escalate very, very quickly in dysfunctional environments. I feel like this family dodged a bit of a major bullet with this entire situation. George just doesn't seem very great. Escalating to violence when a 13-year-old is acting like a dick-headed 13-year-old. Well, that's not going to be great parenting when you have to be with a 13-year-old on a frequent basis. I'm sure that OP has grown up out of the 13-year-old dickhead phase, as we all have at some point, or all will at some point. I also hope George has learned from the situation and learned that punching kids in the face is not a great way to build a healthy family dynamic. I mean, it might be a fleeting hope, but I still hope it nonetheless. And that is going to be today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys enjoyed it, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out my Tabletop Tavern Tip series, where I give advice to both DMs and players old and new. And while you're there on the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down into the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. It's just a religion check to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.